get onto a larger view so I can see more faces than just one. There we go. So yeah, I feel honored to be here with everyone. And before I just start talking about myself, it's cool. Everyone saying why they're here and what they're passionate about or curious about is already creating a healing. And I'll talk a little more about that and how this space will kind of inspire us more, and we get to share more ideas. So since I was a young child, I had a lot of mystical experiences, and so those built and gave me a lot of insight into how creation works. And I was very quiet about it for a long, long time. And as my teens came upon me, I worked with a lot of spiritual teachers and masters and healers, and I always saw energetic worlds. And so I like to call them energetic systems. And I'm not just talking about things that are far off. I'm talking about the systems that are actually implanted here on Earth, how someone would manage a business, how people would interact with each other just in a meeting, how we would interact with even, you say, if you're just checking out at the market, how your whole system and your world would interact with theirs, and what kind of creation would come about from that interaction. And so I got really passionate about that. So I saw it in very minute detail, and I still do, and it just deepens and deepens every day. And so as more openings happen, and as I got deeper into spirituality, you could say more information kept coming into my system, and I had to learn a lot about it. And I'm finally sharing it because the world is actually asking for new systems. And by being receptive, I was able to see new systems that actually want to be planted here. And they're very exciting, and they're very fun, and they're very useful. And so this information actually comes from, we could say, from this creation we live in, much beyond just this earth. It comes from existence itself that's intelligent and aware, and it has an organizing principle and a lot of goodness to it. So my being downloaded a lot of these systems inside myself, and I'm sharing them now. So I work one-on-one with a lot of people, CEOs, psychologists, all kinds of people around the world, life coaches, and I teach them these systems and how to use our energetic ways to actually create harmony in ourselves and in our world, what actually works. Because what I've witnessed in this world so far, this is why I'm excited about being in this space, is that the systems don't work. They're actually all gonna eventually not work. Yes, Jojo just did that. They will. And I'm also gonna say this from the micro and macro point of view, is that if a system works internally, it's gonna work externally. There's no difference. That's why when we try to push an external system and don't actually listen to the internal system, there's dilemma and disease that comes at some point within it. Disease internally, and we're watching that right now on a mass scale, actually. And so we're seeing all these responding groups like this, and many others are coming about to respond to this gap that we're seeing. Any more I can see on myself? There's so much I can just start opening. But that's my background, and I work with people all around the world and study this very deeply. I have backgrounds, went the traditional route of college, then became a body worker, an intuitive guide for many, many people.
Jacob, can you talk more about the gap you mentioned
Sure.
between those two things?
Sure. So there's a concept that humanity hasn't the concept of truth. Let's talk about truth. So there's different levels of truth. And when I talk about gap, if something's true in one place, it's going to be true in another. It's called a universal truth. So nature has universal truths within it. And so if we're out of alignment here and we try to force something out there and they're not compatible, there's going to be a gap, and that gap's going to create tension. And tension, the beautiful thing about tension, it always wants to harmonize itself. So when we create a gap and they're opposite, they don't have the same frequency to them. And we'll talk about that on the many levels of the human, psychological, metaphysical, emotional. There's going to be a subtle war. We call it cognitive dissonance. And that can be to our outer reality and our inner reality. So that gap is actually happening right now in our world. That's why there's so much tension. There's been a great dilemma between the inner and the outer. They haven't actually matched each other. And that why understanding this concept is so important. I know it might sound like, oh yeah, of course, that's kind of cliche, but it takes a deep dive into the heart. It takes a deep dive into how we're thinking and being to actually create a harmonious external, you know? So we have all these new people on the world and they want to create systems and they're excited and they're like, let's create a utopia, let's create. But really the utopia starts right here. And that's a basic law because we have blueprints inside ourselves for the external to be created. We can talk a little more about that as the internal world clears up.
Yep. Sorry, my mic's not that great on this set. But
Okay.
before we go into blueprints, Jacob, can you just talk about what happens when our external world and our inner world do match up? What that looks like?
Sure. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I was talking earlier to my friend Michelle Peterson, who's here, about infinity loops. And I said, this is for all of us. So I'm going to leave a lot of open inquiry for all of us just to see how we're interacting with creation, with reality. So when something doesn't match up, something called the infinity loop, right? It goes like this. It's a relational loop. Okay. When things don't match up, the relational loop can actually talk to each other. See? So you can't grow. When a relational loop's connected, when we're connected to something, we allow it to be grown by what we're connected through. So then the gap happens and one grows in a weird direction and the other grows in another direction and the loop breaks. When it breaks, something dies within it. Like either the thing that we created dies or we get very imbalanced in ourselves because we're trying to connect to something that we're not in a relationship with. So that creates disease. And that could be from the body. I use it in my body work, like your arm. If you don't have a nice relationship, it's not connected to the whole, what happens to that arm? It creates a whole nother existence, right? And then you have a dissociation with it. So then we have a dissociation with reality. We have a dissociation with who we are, with reality. Then we get confused. And from that confusion, we create psychological disease. That's actually where disease gets created from, the separation. So if we're not connected to what we're creating, we don't know who we are.
And can you tie that in for me, at least, about how that shows up with things that we're actually creating in physical form or our
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Some good examples of that would be, there's so many examples. I kind of want to bring it to a very practical level. Even when we have an idea, say if I want to create, let's say a concept of a yoga studio or something, right? Okay. I'm just allowing these thoughts to come in to show a little more about, it's going to get into self-sabotage, right? So there's something in the human being right now that has a hate and love relationship, and they're kind of meshed together. So we long for what we create, and we are afraid of it at the same time. And the moment we start addressing that, so let's take success. Let's take that I want to, this is a great example. I want to have more money. I want to get over my capita that I've been set at. And I'm like, I know I deserve it. I know I deserve it, but I don't believe in it at some level because I haven't investigated myself that deeply. So there's a big portion of my emotions against what I want to create. And so every time I'm going towards what I create, right when I hit that pinpoint of creating it, the emotions will come and actually self-sabotage it. We call it subconscious. Um, so we're going to be in this endless cycle of non-fluid creation, right? There's some parts of us that go, I want a perfect relationship, or I want a successful business. I want this or that. And there's this self-worth issue that emanates up from the deep emotional level. And this happens to be with the new earth too. The new earth is about internal cleanup before the external can even start. So a lot of this is, where are you sabotaging yourself, and where do you not believe in yourself and your identity? And how do we start deprogramming what we think and who we are in relation to what we're creating?
Thanks,
So
Jacob.
is that clear enough for you?
Yeah,
Like that
that
meaning?
helped me a lot.
For
Um,
sure.
I want to go back to something you said earlier about new systems you see coming in and how the current systems will eventually collapse or not work anymore. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Um, so on the personal level, it's people's emotions being purged out. So on the personal level, we're witnessing that things aren't working anymore, like maybe old habits, maybe old defenses, like I'm not going to let love in, or I'm not, um, I can't really think this way about myself anymore. The internal dialogue has to change, right? So why is that happening to everyone right now? Because it's happening to everyone across the board. It's happening because there's new energies here that's actually purging out our energetic system. And we haven't been taught this on the earth plane so far, because we're taught capitalism, we're taught to, be successful and be with the businesses. But we're energetic beings, and our energy body is pulsating like this constantly, right? And the information that's within it is actually shifting out for new information to come in. And that new information is about connection. That's actually the main energy that's coming to the earth plane is heart. That's actually one of the reasons for this existence on Earth. It's a heart-based planet. Other planets have different themes, but this planet's heart. So as we purge it, we're purging everything that actually made us feel separate right now. And so our energy system's shaking and it's getting anxious, but the anxiousness isn't us. That's just old processes that we actually have been utilizing forever, and it's going out. So people get medicated for anxiety when it's really just they're becoming there's a new way of being coming in from the evolution of this universe, of this planet, right? That's why having this knowledge in this type of space is so important, right? We want to create we're like, well, I don't know, I'm just going to chill out for a little longer. But really what's being asked of us is to open our heart more and test our edges. Where can we connect more? Where can we actually create more and believe in ourselves? So where in our energy body is that piece going, no, 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 I don't know. So we shut down and then we get tired and then we get numb. It's a contraction. So one of my actually dharmas here, I would say one of my passions of why I live is actually to expand the energy bodies and show a new way.
And what about you were talking about kind of personally what's happening on a personal level, like individually for each person. What about the systems on a bigger scale that affect all of us?
Well, so the thing about larger systems, it's fascinating because it's consensual. So most of the systems that we're seeing is a process of every one of us actually sitting here. So we actually have to own this. So all the systems that we've seen, each one of us sitting here has consented to it. We've all consented to it. And where it starts getting choppy is when we don't consent anymore. And when you don't consent anymore, that's when your chakra system changes. That's called the evolution. You allow new energy because we're a tribal species. We're a social species, so we actually have more consensual agreements than we're even actually conscious of. We have more consensual agreements around sex, money, power, and rock and roll. Even the music we listen to. But when we actually start going, interesting, my energy body has consented to this paradigm. Are there any more possibilities? So the more we actually start investigating through inquiry, the external systems that we see are going to collapse. Now, we have a chakra system. Let's say we all in this group decided to connect our chakra system together. We would create a third party, and that's called a system. And that system is going to be a reflection on the consensus level of each chakra of this group. And that will be a separate entity. And that entity also has energy patterns to it that are set and are evolving. So that's what we're witnessing right now, is actually an emanation of our consensus into the world.
And I want to kind of go off of what you just said, these separate entities that are forming, because within this group, that's happening quite a lot. Different people coming together. Sorry, can you hear me
There
now?
you go. Yeah, that's better.
Different people coming together. Yeah, Yaler just said, yeah, it sounds like a DAO. People coming together, creating these
Okay.
new entities, as you put it, uh, or new systems of creating new ways of being.
Yeah.
So, can you talk a little bit about how those separate entities start to shift? How these smaller entities start to shift the bigger entity, if you will.
Yeah. So this is where it gets really cool. Because it actually happens both ways, you know? So let's say we have this space right now. Okay, let's take this space as an example. We created a system. It's called a talk. And it has a theme to it. This talk has its own energy that's influencing us, and then we're influencing it. So this space is actually evolving. So I can like amp the energy up here, and we're gonna start feeling it. Maybe if I connect more hearts here, it's gonna start changing the space, and then vice versa. So it's an understanding that we're connected to systems and they're connected to us. It's not creating a separation as if it's impersonal. Like, this is going to get pretty high, but we think the government is like this separate static thing of law that is interacting and it's not. That's still a very barbaric concept. It's a living system that we're creating and receiving from. It's a giving and receiving. When we separate things from ourselves is when it dehumanizes the very evolution we are. So when it stays static, we take away from we're the creators of it and it's creating us. So the energy loop as energetic creators stops, because actually a soul from the soul level is only an energetic being playing with creation. That's why none of you in this group is stuck. You're having experiments of energetic creation, seeing how they work.
Perfect. Thanks, Jacob. Oh, go ahead, Yaler. You have a question or
I was
comment?
going to say it feels like what you're saying is when we disconnect, like for government, for example, right? Like I don't like dealing with government, so thus I have removed myself from the experience of co-creating it, and thus it
Yeah.
doesn't serve me anymore, and thus I feel like it's a totally separate thing that I'm not involved with, and it's going on its own path.
Yeah.
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 And so thus it disempowers you as we do that, because now that creation, and there might, the thing about that, Yealer, is that they don't allow you to have an intimate, co-creative, energetic relationship to it. That's why it's unstable. That's why there's a lot of suffering. And probably for many reasons why. There's a lot of different levels of hierarchy going on. As that collapses, we're all energetic creators and we're all empowered to be to feel our intelligence again, rather than going just abide. But I can see why the evolution took that way. But there's also, we disempower us as a species. in that way as well, from the soul level.
Are there any other questions or comments? I'll just open it up. Yeah, Jonathan.
Riffing off of Yaler's comment a bit, I think as we are alienated from certain institutions, I feel that institutions are important to thriving of humanity, education, systems that improve well-being for people, systems of governance. But if we're alienated from those systems, or those systems are no longer serving us well, I believe it's our responsibility to find ways to find a reattachment, if not to the existing system, to the system that should be. Because ultimately, those institutions as a concept need to survive for human flourishing. And I think that's the challenge for us creators, is to find ways of re-engagement or recreation of those institutions that are important to human beings.
Beautiful. I love that. And that's actually, so when we feel connected to something, we're empowered. So they are ultimately important. I actually like to even say further, they're the ultimate art form of humanity, is systems. It's actually an art form. It's an expression of us. But when they actually feel alienated, that doesn't become an art form anymore. It actually doesn't serve us. Yeah.
Jacob, can you talk about the blueprints? You mentioned blueprints that live in us, that want to come through us. Can you talk
Sure.
about that a bit?
Sure. So my perception from the study of metaphysics and spirituality is there's a lot of information actually coming into the planet. So there's actually a lot of information, I call it waves of consciousness, that come to influence humanity. A lot of that information, so much information, but that's how evolution happened through the Darwinian theory. There was codes that activate within us that give us new ideas and thoughts to turn left or right in very particular directions, in very detailed directions. And we're actually being, in the same way, influenced to make very concise choices through our inner feelings. And those are blueprints that are inherent in us, and also ones that are come through creation itself. They awaken to allow us to make different choices that are actually all harmonious, because it hasn't been harmonious. So the new information that's here, that's even in this container right now, more than we know conscious of, is actually making us planting seeds for new containers to start, or new blueprints to start sprouting out and creating realities, creating worlds. I see it as a bunch of galactic beings. I'll just be honest and transparent. There's a bunch of galactic forces way beyond this planet that are actually influencing the evolution of humanity as a whole. And they're completely sending energy and intelligence that is assisting humanity to create new blueprints in us to feel different ways. And it's inherent in us too, as the human being, to feel connected, to feel empathy, to feel connection. Actually, that's what makes humans humans, is the heart center. And the moment that shuts down or shuts off and we don't believe in ourselves or believe in each other, that's the moment we don't become human anymore. So they're actually giving us energy to reawaken these points of contact.
I'm curious if you could, maybe for some of us who might not feel very connected, or because we were talking a lot about it all has to do with connection. Maybe Jacob, I'm feeling like we could do a little exercise or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love exercises. Well, I'm gonna just answer that really quick. Just yeah. So let everyone start pumping your hands. Yeah. So the first answer is that. So like some people say like I remember being in this too. It was really interesting. So one subject I've been investigating really deeply lately is trauma. And so most people, I would say everyone, is traumatized on the earth from some level. And what I mean by trauma as a definition is that we've dissociated our parts of ourselves from connecting to life, and we're reintegrating it. So the moment we start working on our trauma or our fears is actually when we start feeling connection again, because we've had so many years of like disconnection, years of it, centuries of it, that we're deeply traumatized. And the moment we start actually feeling into our trauma and letting it go, we actually start feeling connection again. We're not afraid of a stranger. We're actually curious about a stranger or a race or a gender. We actually become like, wow, I want to connect with you. You're interesting. I want my heart to learn more. So all the trauma on top of that keeps us very separated. So connection isn't our felt experience anymore for many people, right? So the process of refinding connection for someone who's like, I don't feel life, I don't feel my partner, I don't feel my business, I don't feel God, even go down to that. We need to start looking at, well, have I felt me and connected to me lately? Yeah. In our energetic system, because the moment we start feeling, everything starts waking up inside of ourselves. And that's the moment when that wakes up, that's the force that connects to life. It's not from here. It's the awakening of getting intimate here again, saying, why have I been disconnected? What I'm afraid of? That connects back to life. That's what we're resolving right now as humanity. So we can do that. And the first thing to connection is breath. So we should do a little exercise. Everyone want to sit comfortably right now? So let's bring us to a connection of connecting just with our body. And if everyone's okay, I'm going to open an energy field for all of us to sit in, because it'll be really lovely. I got an okay from Taylor. Okay. So let's all just start getting very comfortable in our body and in our weight. Let's take a feel of how the breath is coming in and out of our body right now. Before any mental activity, breath has to be here, it has to occur. So we're prior to the mind, we're actually breath and aliveness. If you can, let's bring the breath even deeper down into the deep tummy and start breathing into gravity. If your mind activates, breathe it down into your belly. And let's create a blank slate right now, right here, just relaxing and just being. There's nothing to do. There's nowhere to go. I want you to start feeling your feet and your legs. See if you notice any tingling in them as you breathe. See if you can notice their gravity and how that they're not separate from what they're standing or sitting on. They're in relationship. And you're breathing. I want to see if you can feel, I'm going to invite you into something. If you can actually feel the relationship from your foot's point of view to its contact. You might feel gravity. You might feel the density of your foot and its contours on the pillow on the floor. See how your foot actually needs that contrast to exist. Breathe into it. Let's bring that up a little higher into the legs and into the pelvis, the pelvic bowl. And keep sinking, keep breathing. And feel your legs. And feel your breath awaken the lower half of your body. And feel from its point of view. Don't think about it. Breathe and sink even further into gravity. And just breathe. You're grounded. Going even higher. Go through the abdomen and into your chest. Just breathing. Just allowing your body to be awake and to feel. What is it like to be in your body right now? In your room, in the environment? What is it like to feel your chest open outwardly and feel receptive to every person in this container right now? What is it like for your chest to open and be receptive to itself, to breath, to feeling your body in this moment? What's emerging in you when you allow this space to really be here? Just your breath and your sense of being. What emerges in you? Is it intelligent? Is it actually guiding you? What's emerging right now? Allow it to emerge. Maybe it's something you haven't looked at for a long time. Maybe a fear, maybe a memory, maybe joy. Just allow it to emerge. That's the intelligence of your body guiding you exactly to the connection you need to see at this moment in time. This intelligence is much vaster than what we call the mind. I want you to bring up a moment right now of love and of joy and of connection from your past. Anything. It could be your beloved, it could be someone's eyes, anything. Being an array of sunlight on a beautiful day. And ask your body, what does that feel like? Watch your body open like a flower and connect. See how your body is ready for connection. Actually, it has always been ready for connection. You're giving your body to connect back to life, and it feels amazing. It feels like unlimited possibility. Just feeling the love and joy right now, whatever that moment was. And notice that we can go back in time, but the feeling is present now. And just extend that through your whole body at this moment, just waking up the body a little more. Allow it to guide you just a little deeper. What's the message that you're receiving right now? This is where true genius exists, in this space. Because only when we're quiet enough and receptive enough can the intelligence beyond what we've known actually enter. The true genius is this universe. It's you, it's your body, it's dancing. Take a few more deep breaths, just coming back, just letting whatever message you received to just ground in you, to be felt. Let your mind be changed by the feeling. When you're ready, just keep coming back. I'll meet you back in this space. This space is something we can always come to. My contemplation this morning was most of humanity thinks they're intelligent and that they exist behind their brain, as if there's a local entity back here. But that'd be saying that where's the center of my hand? Is it this part or is it here? Where does the hand grow out from? There isn't. The hand exists in all spaces. You can't really say where the center of the hand is because every part makes up the hand. So it's the same thing with your intelligence. You don't just exist in the mind. And the more we allow that intelligence to be known, the more we expand into horizons of intelligence that's inherent in creation. Same thing when we sit in meditation. We're not just up here watching the breath. We are the breath of everything we are. It's not just this local person back here watching the breath. Like there was one. There isn't. We're the breath of everything emanating intelligence into our expression of who we are. That's true genius. When we incorporate it all. That's genius. Yeah.
We're just about at time.
Oh,
Jacob, thank you for taking us through the exercise. But I want to ask if there are any more comments or questions, because I have some things I want to announce before everyone leaves. But if anyone else wants to share anything.
I'm happy to stay on.
Jonathan.
I find that relationships, connections with others, can be more real than myself. You talked about how we think about the thing behind our cranium skull is us. As I grow older and wiser, I find that I'm more the connection, I'm more the relationships than I am me. And I think that's a really powerful way of having a perspective on life. This is the connections are the things that are most valuable, most meaningful, have most energy in them.
Nice.
Taylor.
Yeah, I wanted to just also share like that in the closing thought of like what feeling was coming up during that. It's like beyond whatever I think I should be doing and beyond whatever strategies my mind comes up with for being successful or achieving the things I want the most, I see that picture of wholeness, of like whole being, and allowing your whole being to kind of express itself, bringing me more success, more fulfillment, and more of everything than I could ever possibly like scheme or strategize or like, you know, logically put together. And just in the past like 6 months of working with, I've worked with you, I've worked with Rachel and a few other people as in such a powerful way. And so you're reiterating a message that hits like super deep to me, right? Like we can operate from a different place. And if we allow ourselves to operate from that higher place, that much more integrated place, we get more of all the things that we could possibly hope and desire in this world. And we feel better about it while we're going out.
Right on. That's it. I like what you use the word integrated. Yeah, like that.
Okay. Jacob, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you everyone for coming. I just want to introduce Michelle really quick because she's our speaker next month. And I'm really excited to have her too. But we'll be talking more about connection, sacred connection, and the connection we have with ourselves. So I hope you all can come for that. I want to thank Niran and Panvala too for their support for this series, as well as Gitcoin I know some of you don't know what that is. So if you have questions about DAOs or the crypto space, we're happy to hang around and answer questions about that too to get you all involved. But to think Gitcoin, and you can go there to donate to our grant. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to start up classes again. So I'll be posting about that as well. And anything you want to say, Jacob?
Oh, Taylor has a question.
I was just going to say quickly, those classes are like weekly classes, Rachel. What are those classes going to be this time? Is it like the classes you did before that Niche mentioned?
Yeah, exactly. They're free classes every week. They're going to be 30 minutes, and it's just about centering ourselves. They're on Wednesdays. So breathing, moving, meditation, whatever moves us for that day. So.
Awesome. Where can people find those?
So for those in the crypto space, it'll be in Discord. For everyone else, I'll connect with them because I'll do it somewhere else.
Awesome.
The final words. It's so hard to really suppress time and connect in a big group like this. I usually do one-on-one and just get into the grit. But you know, I really encourage everyone to play, to play and test the possibilities of your heart's desire. And don't be afraid of fear. Let courage guide you, and watch the possibilities emanate through. I know 1 hour is really hard to really get into anything and really emanate. I mean, I feel like I'm just getting started. I'd love to see you all in person. But just play, be curious about the life. I think that's the invitation here. That's why this container is created. I think the more we come from our heart and the more we're curious about life and possibility and connect and play more, we grow in phenomenal ways that are much more than just reading a book. So I really encourage that. And if that's my message, there it is. And allow more to come through us from every possible direction. So, and watch the growth that happens. And if anything says you can't do it, challenge it.
Thank you, Jacob. It was a pleasure having you.
Pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan.